what's good for one person isn't necessarily good for another person.
Today our guest is Simon Atta, more famously known as Simonster. He started gymnastics at a young age where he became passionate on mastering his body. From gymnastics, he went on to breakdancing, calisthenics, martial arts, and circus training. You've probably seen his viral YouTube video where he went knocking out planche push-ups and one-arm handstands to a sick beat. Today we talk about what his training looks like, what's his beef with Ido Portal, and some of the advice to step up your training. Alright, enjoy. What's up everyone, it's Ed here from Barstars, and today I'm here with Simon Atta, also known as Simonster. How's everything?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Good. Let's start off with your stats. What's your height and weight?
Oh, this is the question I get asked all the time. So I'm 179 centimeters, which I think is like 5'10" and a half or just under 5'11". And I'm about 77 kilos. I don't know what that is in pounds. It's like 170, 175, I think.
Yeah. Oh, you're tall for
Yeah.
body weight. Usually when people you see people do like amazing planches and stuff, they're a bit on the shorter end.
Yeah. A lot of people say that when they meet me. They say that, yeah, you're taller than I expected.
Have you felt that yourself personally, that a lot of movements were harder because you're taller?
It's hard to say because I've never been,
True.
I don't really have much else to compare it to other than the height that I'm in. But yeah, I'm sure a lot of things would be easier if I was shorter. Then again, I'm not exceptionally tall by any means. I'm under 6 foot. So.
Well,
yeah,
I think your reference.
I've got.
I think your reference point would be as a teenager, because you've been training since you were young, correct?
Yeah, I didn't do so much calisthenics when I was young. So when I was shorter, I mostly did breakdancing. As I got a little bit older, that's when I started to do more calisthenics kind of stuff. So I was never really chasing the strength skills when I was younger.
What got you into calisthenics?
So breakdancing's always been my passion. I've been doing that since I was about 11 years old, and I always really liked power moves. So spinning, the spectacular kind of movements, head spin, air flares, those sorts of things. And I did a little bit of gymnastics when I was really young. And I noticed that the bodyweight strength training, or the calisthenics that they implemented into gymnastics to help their skills, was really beneficial. So when I started trying to get some of the more advanced moves like flare to 90 or flare to handstand, I always thought, damn, if I was just a little bit stronger, I could get this. If my technique is off by 10%, and I had reserves in strength, I could muscle my way through it. So I started implementing more and more calisthenics into my training to help my breakdancing. And as I got older, I just enjoyed that more. As my joints hurt with power moves, I sort of started focusing more and more on calisthenics. So that's where calisthenics was introduced to me, I guess initially with gymnastics. And my love for it just grew as I got older.
What does your training look like from day to day?
It changes depending on my goals at the time and my age and injuries. At the moment, I do usually a little bit of skill work. So, things like hand balancing, hand hops. I might do that for 30 minutes most days. And then I usually do an hour to 2 of calisthenics training most days of the week, probably 5 days a week. So generally I do a push-pull split. I find that's a really good way to get to train really hard, get enough volume, and still allow each muscle group to recover adequately. So say Monday, I might do a pushing session, planche and handstand push-ups. Tuesday, I might do pulling, front lever, and chin-ups. And repeat that. Throw in legs once or twice a week when gyms are open. But our gyms are closed right now, so I haven't trained legs for a while.
You haven't been doing like pistols and stuff at home?
I find it quite difficult to get a decent workout with body weight using your legs. So I can do, 20 pistols without getting too fatigued. And I don't really like training in that endurance range. I'd rather get under a bar and do weighted squats or, weighted lunges, that sort of thing to train legs. So I've done a little bit to just try and maintain some strength in my legs, but yeah, definitely not the same sort of intensity or volume that I'm used to.
Do you train 7 days a week?
Sometimes I train 7 days a week, but generally I don't. Generally, I'll have a rest day, whether that's planned or incidental. So, if life gets in the way and I'm just really busy one day, I won't train. Or if I schedule that because I'm quite sore. But most of my training life, I haven't trained 7 days a week, probably 5 to 6 at most.
And the session's usually an hour to two?
Yeah, sessions usually an hour to do. I find if I'm training in excess of 2 hours, I have to really be having a good day where I've got a lot of energy. If not, I find the intensity just falls off, and the work that I'm doing in the beyond the second hour is just not really beneficial. I'm just kind of going through the motions for no real reason. So I think the return on investment after that second hour is quite diminished.
I actually met some like really high level hand balancers that worked at the circus, and they said they would train for like 8 hours just balancing. And I was like, holy shit,
Yeah,
that's insane.
yeah. I think that works for certain things, and I think hand balancing is one of those things that is beneficial to train for a lot of hours, especially as a really advanced athlete. And the reason for that is hand balancing isn't a very physically demanding exercise when you compare that to something like calisthenics. So, for example, if you train 3 hours of hand balancing, by the third hour, you might be a little bit fatigued. You might not be as fresh as you were in the first hour, but you can still maintain a high quality of work. You can still balance on one hand. You can still do different shapes if you're a high level hand balancer. Whereas if you get a calisthenics athlete and you have them training planche for 3 hours, your first set of planche is good. Your second set of planche is good. Maybe your first 10 sets of planche are really good. That will take you, say, 30 minutes. After that point, when you've done 5 sets to close to failure of planche push-ups, 5 sets close to failure of planche holds, you've done 5 sets close to failure of handstand push-ups. After that point, you're not even an hour in, and you are not holding a planche anywhere near the same level that you were at the beginning of your session. So it really depends on whether you're training skills or strength and how physically demanding those skills are. I found with the things that I really like to pursue, they were very physically taxing. And after an hour to 2 hours, the intensity and the quality of work is just not there due to fatigue. So, for example, with power moves, I could probably train head spins for 3 hours, no problem. If I'm trying to train things like air flares or one-hand air flares, I've got about an hour max of good quality practice before it deteriorates.
Have you ever tried dual sessions in a day? Maybe like an hour in the morning and an hour at night?
Yeah, I love that. I think that's awesome. It's just, I find that really hard to do due to other life commitments. So, if I'm working, I've got to get up and be at work at 8 a.m. It's really hard to get a session in before that, or at least a productive session in before that. But yeah, when I have free time, when I'm on holidays, yeah, I love that. I think it's a really good way to train. It's a really good way to get in more volume of practice, which is often really productive.
Would you recommend that to someone that has like an ideal schedule? Let's say someone retired young or a teenager, maybe.
Yeah, hell yeah. But once again, that comes with the caveat of building towards that. So I think if your body's not accustomed to it, training is only as effective as what you can recover from. So if you can recover well from your training, fantastic. Keep increasing the training as long as you're recovering from it. If you can't recover from it, excess training is not going to be beneficial. It's going to be detrimental. So if you're quite new to training, you're a beginner, doing dual sessions a day is probably not that beneficial. You'll probably make really good progress from training once a day, or maybe doing 2 short sessions a day, just because your body really needs to adapt to doing more volume before you can recover from it. If you're recovering well, yeah, 2 sessions a day is awesome.
You would say they should aim for maximum recoverable volume.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Basically, I think more training is always beneficial with as long as you can recover from it and the quality of your training is upheld. So that goes for skill and strength training. If you find your training skills and an hour into your skill training, it's just sloppy. You're no longer training with good technique. You can't maintain good technique. You're just performing with bad technique. You might be reinforcing bad habits. That training that you're doing in the fatigue state is not going to be beneficial, and it could actually be detrimental because you could be reinforcing these bad habits. Whereas if you can maintain a high quality of practice, you're training with good technique, it's still optimal. Doing more of that is gonna lead to more progress.
Me personally, the best progress I've ever done on the handstand, the front lever, and the planche has always been with dual sessions, like one good hour conditioning in the morning, and then like I'll add another 15 minutes later that day. Has that
Me
been your
too. I've always, me too. Yeah, the times I've made the most progress in my life have been times where I've been on like school break, or university break, and I could really dedicate more time to training. And then it was just about programming that training intelligently so I could recover from it.
Did you have programming mistakes on the way?
Definitely.
What are some? I thought when I was younger, I used to just kill myself at the park, like 4 hours of just.
Yeah, that's what I've done as well, and it's just I've just as I got older, I learned that's not beneficial. So I might like there's been times where I've done like 20 sets of I'd do 20 sets of front levers, and after probably the 10th set, it probably did not help me at all or hindered progress. There's been times where I've just trained the same muscle group back to back, day after day after day, into soreness. Once again, that probably wasn't the most intelligent way to train. Ran into lots of issues with overtraining. So, you get really motivated. You see something that motivates you. You go, damn, I really want to get better at head spins, and you train head spins every day for a month. And in a month, you've got all sorts of injuries and aches. Same thing with planche, same thing with handstand. So those are the sort of issues that I ran into along the way that I've learned more about as I got older.
Do you think it varies from person to person? Because I know me personally, when I was younger, I was training full body for a long time. And then if you look like every day, and then if you look at CrossFit, their programming is pretty much full body. It's not a body part split. And I interviewed 2 interviews ago, maybe Marcus Bondi, and I think he works out every single day, the same similar workout.
So a few things there. There's definitely individual variance. So there's a high level of individual variance between people. What's good for one person isn't necessarily good for another person. In addition to that, there's some good underlying principles that can be followed to intelligently program a number of different ways. So the way I love to program, or the way I love to train, is generally with a push-pull split, where I'll go pushing one day, pulling the next day, and repeat that process, throwing in legs once or twice a week. You can train full body every day. That's still a great way to train. A lot of bodybuilders do a full body every day kind of program. The issue there is that you can't do as much volume per session, per muscle group. So on a pushing day, you might do, say, 8 sets of pushing or 12 sets of pushing, up to 20 sets of pushing. And you can recover from that before your next day of training. If you did 20 sets of everything for full body, firstly, your workout would just take way too long. You can't take 4 hours to train your whole body at that kind of volume. And additionally, you can't recover from that for the next day. But over the course of a week, you might be getting the same sort of volume and intensity as when you did a push-pull split. So yeah, lots of intelligent ways to program. You might do an upper body, lower body split. There's another example of something you could do. As long as you're recovering well, your intensity and your volume is similar, there's many similar ways to make the same amount of progress.
Volume is a significant factor when you're gaining muscle mass. Would you say it's the same for learning a skill?
Yeah, I would. Yeah. So there's a sweet spot for everything, and it's often hard to know what that sweet spot is. So more volume is beneficial to a point, and then excess volume on top of that is not beneficial. It won't really add much. You'll get diminishing returns, and then at some point it will probably be detrimental. So at some point, it's probably going to have deleterious effects on your progress. I think that's the same with skills. Once again, high level of individual variance, high level of variance between skills. It might be different between upper body, lower body. It's different between different types of skills depending on how physically taxing they are. So it's kind of hard to know exactly what the sweet spot is for you. Some key principles I like to go by with skill training. When your training technique deteriorates, you're no longer training at the same quality as you were doing before. That's when it's a good time to take a rest and either come back to that later in the day if you can, or rest until a subsequent session on another day.
Got it. Any tips for the
Yeah.
one-arm handstand? You have a very strong one.
I don't actually have a very strong one-arm handstand, I would say. So my I can balance on one hand, but I'm certainly not a hand balancer. I'm in a different field with breakdancing. So I really like hopping on one hand, doing thread hops, hopping on one elbow. I can balance on one hand, but I'm not particularly good at that. When it comes to training either of those skills, though, hand balancing to balance on one hand or to hop on one hand, I think time on your hands is just really important. The more time you can spend on your hands, the better. I think a lot of people worry too much about having optimal technique and just don't actually spend much time on their hands. But just consistent hard work over a long period of time, having patience is really important. If you see anyone who can balance on one hand, they've put in significant work.
What do you say this goes against the previous rule you said, where you should stop once you're breaking form? What do you say for the handstand? You keep going even if the form's a little off.
No, I think that goes to handstands as well. I think with hand balancing, you can maintain form for a long time. So if you've ever just practiced handstands, not handstand push-ups, not a strength-related handstand skill, but just purely balancing on your hands, that requires a relatively low level of strength. You're not fatigued after 10 sets of handstands the same way that you are after 10 sets of handstand push-ups. So you might be able to train handstands with good technique for an hour. And if that's the case, then do an hour. If you're getting into 2, 3, 4 hours with great technique, you're still maintaining a good quality of practice, go for it. And that's what you see with advanced hand balancers. They've spent so long on their hands, they're not fatiguing into that 3rd or 4th hour. Once again, take sufficient rest between sets that you're fresh at the next set that you do, so that you can maintain a high quality of practice. So instead of doing a minute of a handstand, training close to failure, you fatigue, you fall down, take 10 seconds rest, you kick up, you're not going to get close to a minute on that next set. A better approach for skill training is to train far from failure and focus on the technique. So you kick up, you might be able to do a minute, that's your capacity for endurance. Kick up for 30 seconds, focusing on good alignment, good technique, good balance, come down, rest a minute, repeat that process. That will give you a much better result in terms of balance and skill progress.
When it comes to skills, what would you say would be your ratio from static progressions towards dynamic progressions? So, for example, the pseudo push-up compared to tuck push-up, tuck planche, just holding it.
Okay, yeah. In my personal training, I probably do about 3 dynamic exercises to every static exercise. Yeah. So I generally start with the statics. So take a planche session, for example. I might start with static planche holds, whatever intensity that is, tuck, straddle, full. So you might do 4 or 5 sets of that. And after that, they tend to be dynamic exercises. So handstand to planche, planche push-ups, mechanical advantage planche push-ups, and then accessory work.
Do you have any specific conditioning for your wrist?
No, I don't. Other than my quite basic warm-up. So I find with wrist health, really important things to do are to listen to your body and avoid pain. If things start hurting, that's not a good thing. Stay away from pain. So if you start getting sore 30 minutes into your workout, don't push into that. That's a good way to get injured. If things hurt, that's generally your body telling you to back off. My wrist conditioning, or my philosophy on preventing wrist injury or conditioning your wrists, is just to take a gradual progressive approach and allow your body to adapt to the stimulus that you're putting through it. So I think a common mistake a lot of people make with their wrists is you get really motivated. You take a workshop on a weekend for hand balancing, and you go from doing nothing on your hands to doing 2 hours every day on your hands. And your body is just not used to that. you get 2 weeks in and your wrists are in agony. You've got an overuse injury because your wrists just weren't acclimated to that load through them, or your tendons, or whatever structure. So a better way to do that is to gradually progress. If things are pain-free, then you can increase the volume, increase the intensity. So you might start with 10, 15 minutes a day. That's going, or 10 or 15 minutes every second day. That's going well. Increase that to 20 minutes. Increase that to 30 minutes. That's going well. You might increase that to every day.
Do you follow a special diet?
No, I don't. Not at all.
Any rules at all?
No rules with my diet. Generally, I eat pretty healthy, but I don't have a strict diet by any means. I try to eat a lot of I try to eat a lot of protein. I try to minimize processed foods, but I'm very happy to snack on some chocolate or
Nice.
eat some junk food.
You know how many calories you eat in a day at all?
I would have. I'm not sure. I'd be taking a guess, saying about, I don't know, 2,000 or 3,000, but that varies a lot as well. Some days I might eat 1,000. Some days I might eat 4,000. So it's quite sporadic. I don't have a very consistent eating routine.
You take any supplements?
I take creatine.
Does it?
Yeah, I got some.
Do you feel like the bloat from it?
I haven't felt a very big bloat. I definitely think sometimes I do feel a bit heavy when I've had that a lot. I'm pretty bad at staying consistent with it. So I might I just take these little creatine sugar tablets that have a gram of creatine and a couple of grams of sugar in them. So some days I might take 3 grams, some days I might take 2 grams. I don't have like a strict schedule with that either. When I am consistent, I do feel a little bit heavier.
Do you feel a difference in yourself?
I think I can get a few more reps. So I do feel like I have a little bit more endurance there. When it comes to body weight, it is a bit challenging because sometimes I might take a lot of creatine and I feel quite strong with regards to lifting external weight. So for example, I might get under a squat bar and get a few more reps than usual, but my handstand push-up has gone down a rep or two. And that might be I'm just holding a lot more water and I'm heavier. I'm lifting a couple of extra pounds or kilograms of my own body weight. So I find when it comes to training with external weights, I notice a really positive effect. When it comes to training with body weight, I don't notice too much of a difference. But there's plenty of evidence to suggest that the creatine is beneficial for improving hypertrophy, improving strength endurance. So that's why I'm happy to continue with that.
Yeah, the creatine has a lot of evidence behind it. There's a significant portion of people that are non-responders, though. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, I have heard about that. Well, to me, the taking a couple of delicious tablets of sugary creatine is not really a cost to me. It's not there's no downside to that. It's just, so if I'm a non-responder, then I'm a non-responder. I'm not too upset that I've taken some sugary tablets. It would be hard. It's very hard for me to say. I don't notice, the effect is modest anyway. I've never, tested a before and after with creatine and without creatine personally. So I couldn't tell you if there's a huge effect, but my intuition is that there is a very modest positive effect from taking it.
So I followed you on Facebook for a couple years, and I've seen you post every now and then. It will be a post about Ido Portal.
Oh yeah, years back.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think yeah.
And a lot of the posts seem like taunting him. Probably. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I would say that's accurate. Yeah, I don't think I've posted anything about Ido Portal in a few years. I think a few years ago, he made a lot of noises that I didn't quite agree with, so I would often push back against those. I did it in a very mocking manner, which I probably shouldn't have, but
it was super entertaining from my end.
Yeah,
Wait, how would you describe Ido Portal, in case people don't know? I know he did a lot of famous work with London Real Guy and Conor McGregor for his fight.
Yeah, so he's very big in the world of movement culture, however you want to define that. Um, yeah, I don't really know what his training philosophy is. If I'm honest, I don't think it's I just I just don't fully understand what his training is all about. I think a lot of the things that he says sound very profound, but when I pick them apart, I don't think there's um, much substance behind them. So I think a lot of his ideas are really good, and I think a lot of his training methods are really good. But there's some things that I don't quite agree with, and there's some things that I just felt that he said that seemed quite arrogant, rude, especially when it comes to things like, I don't train vegans; they're too weak, or um, that sort of thing. Yeah,
You're not a big fan of the lizard claws, where he's like,
yeah. I mean, if you want to do lizard crawls, that's absolutely fine. They're cool. Go for it. I don't see a purpose in that in my own training. I don't see a benefit of doing that sort of thing. It's not going to help me get to my goals. Yeah,
I had to control the laugh for a little bit.
that's all good. You can laugh.
How would you suggest someone who wants to start training and body weight exercises, calisthenics?
I think if you have access to a calisthenics gym, I think there are a lot of really good calisthenics gyms in the world. So if you've got access to that, great. If you've got access to a personal trainer who has experience with calisthenics, fantastic. If you don't, I think YouTube is a really good resource. There's a lot of beginner calisthenics routines on YouTube. There's a lot of people making really good educational content. I think if you just get on YouTube and follow that, it can be, yeah, really useful. The issue with that is there's so much out there. Um, it can often be a little bit overwhelming knowing who to follow, and there's a bit of conflicting information. As a beginner, doing just about any form of training with calisthenics, it's going to be beneficial.
Even if it's just push-ups or pull-ups.
Yeah, even just push-ups or pull-ups. Even if you can't do a push-up or pull-up, getting under doing incline push-ups or push-ups on your knees, that's a great way to build capacity. You'll get pretty strong pretty quick as a beginner. As you get more advanced, it's much more difficult to make progress. Same thing with chin-ups. If you're doing just negatives, you're stepping to the top of a chin-up and just lowering down in a slow and controlled manner, or you're doing chin-ups with assistance from a band, that's fantastic. You'll make a lot of progress with that.
What are some things you wish you knew when you first started training?
I think I wish I just had a little bit more direction on the type of skills that I wanted to pursue. So when I started training, there were so many skills that I wanted to achieve. And I would initially try to work on all of those at once. So I would think I want to be able to do planche push-ups. I want to be able to do head spins. I want to be able to jump really high. I want to be able to balance on one hand. And trying to train all of those at once is pretty ineffective. I wish I knew that you can sort of train towards many goals, but you can't train towards many goals that effectively at once. You really need to periodize your training and tick things off as you go and maintain that. So I wish I knew that you'd make a lot more progress just training a couple of skills at a time. Picking one or two skills to pursue and master those and then move on.
Let's say you did that with, let's say, 6 skills. Did you feel like you did two, then you do the next two, the next two? Do you feel like by the time you're at numbers 5 and 6 that you've fallen off on number 1 and 2?
1, 2, no, not at all. So I think that's a possibility. You can fall off on one or two, but it takes a lot less energy to maintain a skill than it does to progress with a skill. So I think if you achieve a skill, you can just put that in the maintenance bin and give that just enough attention to maintain it once you've got it to the level that you want it. The good thing about calisthenics is a lot of the skills that you're going to train will supplement other skills. For example, if you're really good at planche, that's going to go a long way in terms of handstand push-ups, 90-degree push-ups, handstand to planche. It's a very similar movement. They use similar muscle groups. The strength is very transferable. So if you get a 10-second planche and you're happy with that, and then the next thing you want to achieve is handstand push-ups, you might still make progress not even touching your planche. just because you're working similar muscle groups. If you find that you are deteriorating with your planche ability, you might just throw 1 or 2 planche sets in a week. Max planche hold, max 10-second planche hold once a week might be enough to maintain it. That's not going to take away from much of your other training. So what I like to do is put things in the maintenance box and just give them just enough attention to keep those skills at the level that you want them.
When you say 1 or 2 planche trainings a week, do you mean like a whole workout session or just going into the
No,
movement?
I literally mean 1 or 2 planche sets a week. So if you're not going to make good progress on your planche doing that. But if that block, you've got the planche to the level that you're happy with and you want to pursue handstand push-ups now, even just doing 1 or 2 sets of planche a week might be enough to maintain that skill. If it's not, 2 to 3 sets of planche holds a week, 2 to 3 sub-maximal planche holds where you train, you do your max 10-second planche for 8 seconds for 3 sets. That might be enough to hold on to it when you're training other pushing skills such as handstand push-ups alongside that.
So right now, I seen a recent interview. You said you were working on your one-arm pull-up and front lever. How's that going?
That's going pretty well. I've got a bit of a shoulder injury right now, so I haven't been doing too much pull-up work. My front lever is pretty good. I'm just trying to improve that. Been training a lot of lever pulls, a lot of static holds, lever raises, that sort of thing.
And so you still throw in the planches where you do them 2 or 3 times a week?
Yeah, so at the moment, I've got this shoulder injury, so I haven't actually done planche for quite a while. But yeah, it kind of aggravates that a little bit. So that's kind of taken a step back.
Is it workout related, your injury?
It is. It's definitely workout related, but there's no acute incident. I think this is just a gradual, progressive injury that's happened over years.
Did you just wake up one day and it felt like a lot of pain?
No, so I had a little bit of pain in my right shoulder maybe 3 years ago. I got an MRI. It showed a very, very small rotator cuff tear, along with some other things like labral tear. I think that was just incidental. That's just something that if you could scan my good shoulder or your shoulder that feels fine right now, and it might show that. And then that settled down really well. So the past 3 years, I've been able to train at a really high level. I could hop on one hand, do anything I wanted pain free. And then a few months ago, I started just getting a slight pain in my shoulder. Just a little bit of an annoying pain occasionally at the bottom of a planche push-up or certain positions with my shoulder. And that just gradually got a little bit worse over the following months. Got a second MRI and it showed just a slight progression of that rotator cuff tear. So, yeah, I think it's just getting older, doing a lot of work with your arm kind of thing.
You're a physical therapist, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, physiotherapist is what we call it in Australia and the UK and Canada.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
So
you
plan on treating yourself?
Yeah, as best I can.
What are some of the things you're going to use to address it?
Mostly just rest and see if it settles down. So see if it settles down on its own. If it doesn't, you can get there's certain injections you can get. So you can get platelet-rich plasma. Whether or not that's effective is questionable. If it gets much worse, you could get a rotator cuff repair, like a surgical repair. I'd prefer not to, but if it comes to that and I got to do it.
Yeah, a lot of people stay away from the surgery. I mean, I think I would too, though.
Yeah, no one wants to get cut open if you stuck in a sling for six to 8 weeks and then have restrictions on what you can do with your arm for 6 months. So if you can avoid it, that's always good. But some people can't. There's a lot of athletes who end up getting surgical repairs.
I also heard that once you get the surgery, the chance of it reopening is still pretty significant.
Yeah, I imagine so. I'm not too sure on the evidence with that. I think if you're quite young, fit, healthy, you've got good tissue that they can repair. You can have a pretty good career after a surgical repair. That's something you got to speak to your surgeon about. If you've got deteriorated, weak tissue that they're trying to repair, like you're trying to stick 2 bits of damaged t-shirt back together, it's much more likely to rip again.
If you had to pick only 4 exercises you could do, what would they be?
Forever?
Yeah.
All right. Planche, handstand push-up, lever raises, squats.
Planche would be static or push-ups?
Planche push-ups.
It's a sick combo.
Yeah. Yeah. I think with planche push-ups, you could argue that you're using tempos to get a little bit of static planche in there. 2-second holds at the top, get a little bit.
Do you feel like there's obviously some correlation between the full planche and planche push-ups, but do you feel like
Definitely.
it's kind of like a Venn diagram? So it shares some parts, but other parts it doesn't. So I mentioned that because I've seen people that could do really nice static planche push-ups, and they've come to me and go, "Yo, not planche push-ups, hold the full planche," and they would ask me like, "Yo, how do you do planche push-ups?" And it's kind of like, "Whoa, like really?"
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about this for a little while. So planche and planche push-ups share a very small portion of the planche, which is the top portion which is just the very top of the planche. Generally, I find people are better at planche push-ups than they are at planche. I think you'll see this a lot with beginners trying to learn the planche. People can hold a straddle planche with bent arms or a straddle bent arm planche at the bottom, but can't hold a straddle planche at the top. They might only be able to hold a tuck at the top. Generally, you're stronger at the bottom of a planche push-up than at the top. That's true for most people. That's the natural strength curve of the exercise. So, and if someone's listening to this, you can just try this at home. Just see what you can hold for your planche at the top. Let's say see what intensity you can do at the top. It might be a tuck planche, might be a straddle planche. See what intensity you can do at the bottom. If you can hold a full planche, just see how long you can hold a full planche versus a bent arm planche. And I think most people will find you're much stronger at the bottom. As you push up, as you get higher in your planche towards the top, the exercise gets progressively harder. This is much like a squat, but with an inverse relationship. So a squat's really easy at the top. A squat is much harder at the bottom. And when people fail on a squat, they generally fail at the bottom of a squat. That's the natural strength curve of the exercise. You could quarter squat a lot more weight than you can do a full squat with. And that's just a natural inherent thing with the exercise. That being said, if you practice something, you get good at what you practice. So if you've just practiced straight arm planche, you'll get really good at straight arm planche. If you just practice bent arm planche, you get really good at bent arm planche. You don't necessarily get a crossover between the two. They will complement each other because they use similar muscle groups, but they're not the same exercise. You'll get good at what you practice. So even if you can't hold a full planche at the top, the reason some people can do planche push-ups without being able to hold a full planche is because you can generate a lot of force at the bottom. You might be able to generate enough force that you can get your arms straight. You can't actually hold the position before falling back down. And you can do that for multiple reps. The other thing is true. If you can hold a full planche and you've never done planche push-ups in your life, you might just not have enough strength in that bent arm position and need to build some strength there to be able to push up. So generally, people are better at bent arm planche. There are some exceptions to that if you've never practiced the bent arm planche, though. A good way that you can manipulate the exercise to account for that strength curve of the exercise is to do a mechanical advantage planche push-up. So what you can do there is let's say you can do a tuck planche at the top and a straddle planche at the bottom, but you can't do straddle planche push-ups. What you can do is start in a tuck at the top and then extend the legs as you lower to the bottom to land in a straddle planche at the bottom before pushing back to a tuck planche at the top. What that's going to do is lengthen the lever as you descend. So the intensity of the exercise is going to get harder towards the bottom where you're stronger and get easier towards the top where you're weaker. This will build more strength at the bottom where you're stronger, and this might speed your journey towards doing full planche push-ups, because you might one day get to a point where you can hold a straddle planche at the top, you can hold a full planche at the bottom. You can't hold a full planche at the top, but you can still do full planche push-ups, and the reason is you can generate enough force at the bottom to get to the top before falling back down. You're just unable to hold the top position.
That was very well said.
Make sense?
Yeah, of course.
Cool.
What are some common fitness myths that you hear a lot?
None pop to mind right now. Um, one thing I often hear different iterations of is, you want to get good at bench press, you need to do this exercise. Or do you want to double your squat, you need to do this exercise. And generally that just doesn't, it's just not true. The best way to get good at something is to do that exercise. You can definitely supplement it with other things, but the best way to improve your bench press is to do bench press. The best way to improve your squat is to do squats. And I think that holds true for a lot of things.
Yeah, I agree.
Did any come to your mind? Any fitness myths you hear a lot?
Well, I'm biased because I've debunked all the ones I've heard. So like
Yeah,
I'll I'll be
yeah.
thinking about
I just want to hear some. You don't have to
um
debunk them. Just
I was at
list some.
I was at the park, and then this happens so much. So sometimes I get recognized from YouTube, and I'm super appreciative.
Yep.
But I'm here to work out. It's the local park, and then some guy is telling me, he
Yep.
starts like this long conversation, and he's telling me how he does a kind of like windmills where you're standing up and then you touch your toes, and he goes, "Yeah,
Yep.
it's gonna burn all my belly fat." And I was like, "Oh, there's so many things wrong with this sentence," but at the same time, I really just want to work out, so I just kind of like was like, "Yeah, bro."
Just go. Yeah. 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 You see. Yeah.
It depends what kind of mood I'm in. If I'm really into the workout, it's just like I can't take the
Yeah.
time now to give you a speech, especially a speech that you could feel like you can get pushback on. And it's like, damn, I have to Google articles at the park and stuff.
Yeah. Definitely.
I had a question in my head. Have you competed in breakdancing?
Yeah, I have. Not for. I probably haven't for over 10 years, but I used to compete from like 14 to 18 a lot. Basically, any of the competitions I could do in Australia, I would do.
How was your competing career? How would you say?
Yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah, yeah, it was quite competitive. Won a lot of battles here. Um, yeah, I kind of fell off that. I didn't really like competing that much. I feel there's a lot of politics in breakdancing or b-boying. I just wanted to do my thing. You know, people are like, why don't you compete? I just want to chase these moves. That's what I find enjoyable.
Did you
I
do
don't.
moves outside of the power moves?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So if you go on YouTube, there's a few videos you'll see me. I did everything. I did a lot of footwork. I did a lot of top rocking, a lot of footwork. Did a lot of freezes and tricks. But my main focus was always tricks and power. I wanted to do the spectacular things. I wanted to do the things that look impossible. I wanted to hop on one hand, spin on my head. Those were the skills I enjoyed doing and that I pursued. But yeah, I did everything.
Got it. All right, that was my last question. Let us know about your workout program. I've seen it on Facebook.
Oh yeah. So if you want to find my, are you talking about the ads you've seen on Facebook?
Yeah, no, very
All
well,
right. So
very very
yeah, yeah.
beautifully done.
Well, yeah. Well, I didn't make those ads, so I can't take any credit for that. But I'll talk a little bit about that, and then I'll talk about my other programs. So I wrote some programs for this app called the Fit app. They're calisthenics programs that are just upper body focused. It's to build a general balanced upper body strength. Level 1 is for those who can't yet do a pull up or a dip, can't yet do a bodyweight pull up or dip. So that focuses a lot around building strength with assisted exercises such as resistance band assisted pull ups and dips. You need some equipment like a pull up bar or rings to do dips on and a resistance band. Level 2 is a little bit more challenging. That's for those people who can do a few pull ups, can do a few dips, but can't are looking where to move to next. They want to get into things like handstand push-ups, get into things like front and back lever, planche, but don't know where to go with that. So that's to build capacity, improve your chin up and dip ability, but also get an introduction to some skills like the planche, like the lever, with the beginner progressions like tuck lever, tuck planche. Level 3 is more advanced. That's building strength for handstand push-ups, one arm chin up, planche push-ups. Before you do that, you should be able to do at least 15 or so chin-ups and be able to hold it at least a tuck planche or a tuck lever. So those are just general upper body strengthening exercises. Then I've got some things on my website, simonsterstrength.com. Those are more skill specific. They go into individual skills in a much more comprehensive manner. So handstand, planche, flag, those sorts of things.
Awesome, perfect. What's the website again?
Simonsterstrength.com.
Perfect. Thank you for giving me some time today. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.